I didn't know it back then, but the first game that I played pulled me into a world that I never wanted to leave. It wasn't just a game, it was the beginning of everything. My love for games, curiosity, my obsession with pixelated worlds, it all started here. Hey guys, I'm Russ, and welcome to Russly, my new channel. Here we talk gaming, memories, and all the rad things that we grew up on. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, welcome. Today I'm sharing the first game that I played that made me a gamer. Now, probably like most people, growing up, I didn't have a game system and I got a hand-me-down system, right? My cousins were a little bit older than me and they had a game system long before me, and they kind of grew out of playing games, so my aunt thought, hey, maybe Russ wants to play these games. So she came over with that old milk crate filled with games and a system inside of it. Whole bunch of games too. I was super excited to dig through and see what these games were and the system because I had never played it before. I brought the milk crate downstairs into the basement. Picture it, paneling walls, right? Got to have the wood paneling on the walls and the TV stand, the rickety metal TV stand, wheels on the bottom, right? CRT TV on top of it with some type of grate or something that you can either put a VCR or a game system. And I was digging through the milk crate, looking at the box art of these games, seeing which games I wanted to play. And one kind of stood out to me. It had pretty cool art. I enjoyed the colors on it. And so I popped it into the system. All right, enough alluding to it. It's kind of a little bit of cop-out because I can't exactly remember the exact first game I popped into that system. So I have a few here I'll talk about. But this one definitely stands out in my mind. And I'm talking about Moon Patrol on the Atari 2600. Just the cool colors right here of the moon car with it being blue and green. I thought that looks pretty cool. Space stuff was real big in the 80s, right? So drawn to this, I was like, wow, this looks like a cool game. So popped it into the Atari. They did have in the box, it was an Atari 2600 and an Atari 7800. They both were in there. So this one here with the silver cartridge stood out a little bit to me. Well, the silver label itself. So popping in that game and then just seeing that moon car go across the moon itself, hopping over craters. It was, fairly simple gameplay, shooting a little bit and jumping over craters, and progressively got more difficult as you went on. It was addicting and super fun to play, so I always found myself going back to this game and playing Moon Patrol. But not only that, there was a whole bunch of games in there. Well, there was a lot of space games, right? Atari. Space was big on everything. So another one that I was playing was the game Defender right here. Again, the box art's awesome on this. Very, I'd say, late 70s with like the lady on there and the futuristic vibe going on. But you're flying a ship around, horizontal style, and just shooting stuff. Pretty simple, right? Atari graphics are super basic, right? And you're just cruising and enjoying it, having that joystick and the one button just firing away. And I was just sitting on the couch enjoying the experience of playing these games. I probably seen my cousins maybe play the system before or heard my friends talk about video games, but I feel like that was a definitive moment of experiencing it for myself, being in the basement with the CRTV. I had my room upstairs, but just, I don't know why we set it up downstairs. I guess maybe mom didn't want me to have the video game system in my room, although later on I did have my Nintendo in there, so who knows? So it seems significant going down into the basement with the wood paneling walls and experiencing Atari 2600. We're playing these two games, and of course, if we're talking Atari 2600, gotta mention Asteroids. Such a classic game for sure. You're just this little ship in the middle of the screen with a bunch of asteroids coming around. You shoot them, they divide. you got to shoot them again, right? Again, simple concept, pretty neat box art right here with the cool ship. Again, Star Wars is real big, so a lot of star-based games out in space there where you're shooting other spaceships or anything. With this one, I did end up having a strategy in Asteroids of not moving and just staying stationary. I feel once I started moving, you kind of drift through the space, and then you're more prone to run into an asteroid and die. So I feel like just being stationary and just moving, clockwise, shooting the stuff, I felt like I stayed alive much longer. I wish I could remember what the high score was. I felt like I did pretty good on that one. So I would go back to a lot of these, I guess, space games that I was drawn to. Asteroids, Defender, and Moon Patrol definitely stand out as some of the first video games that I played. And I had that system for quite a bit, playing those games and enjoying them. And I do have some later stories we could get into in other episodes of getting some new Atari 2600 games, going to Toys R Us and getting them before I got my Nintendo. But I did start off with the Atari. And again, it's just a box of games. They didn't have any of the boxes left. It was just the cartridges, but some of like the manuals are almost like comic books that came with it too. So I ended up, sorting through those and looking at the pictures and just being in awe and like, wow, this is so cool. Like, you could just dive into this pixelated world and just have a good time. Again, very minimal on Atari with your joystick, one button, play action, pretty simple to pick up on, right? Not many controls. So you're like, if one button's got to fire or jump or do something like that, and this is your directional, and you're just kind of picking games from looking at the box art. What stands out to you? Some good box art. And Atari definitely had some awesome box art. A little bit misleading, right? I guess you could say draws you in. Fantastic picture. You flip it over and you're like, all right, a couple squares on here. I got to use my imagination and kind of go from there. But I definitely had some good memories playing the Atari 2600. So I don't have the milk crate, obviously, anymore. Upgraded to a little plastic container. But here are all the games that got donated to me from my cousins as a hand-me-down. Kind of mishmash of games that stood out. And those ones out of the bunch, Moon Patrol, Defender, Asteroids. I did play a little bit more of Keystone Capers. That was a fun one where you're getting chased around and there's 3 different levels. There's like a crook you're trying to catch, and that one was pretty fun. So I remember playing that one a lot. Of course, Frogger, right? Remember Frogger, classic arcade game. Couldn't get very far in this one. Would always get flattened and run over, but cool box art for sure. What are the ones in here? This one was pretty cool. Obviously, growing up in the 80s, I was a big G.I. Joe fan. Love the box art on that one right there. I could never get far in this game or really know, I guess, what to do. I mean, I guess what were they going to come up with for a G.I. Joe game, but I'm so glad I have this. The label's great. G.I. Joe, Cobra Strike. There might have been other ones as well. I don't know. It certainly was a simpler time, right? Playing Atari, simpler graphics, concept for sure, and just sitting down in that basement with the paneling and in the old couch with that, weird 70s orange fabric. I try my best to describe it. Woven pattern. I don't know. I'm sure you guys can picture what the couch looked like, right? Dimly lit basement, moist, with a milk crate of Atari games. Maybe eating some pizza rolls, chicken nuggets, who knows? Sipping on some Pepsi or Coca-Cola. Just playing these simple games. Simpler games, simpler times, that's for sure. I haven't played it recently, I will say. I still have those systems that were handed down to me, so I still have those, which is great. And I did end up getting you can do a AV mod on the Atari 2600, because you used to have to hook it up with the 2 prongs on the back of the TV, right? You could either do that or it had to screw into the coaxial, and that's how you got your signal. But they do have a mod now where you can make it AV modded, so this way you can plug it into, I guess, a more modern CRT TV. You'd have to go even more to get HDMI, right? To get it onto like a flat screen TV. Of course, there's ways you can emulate and all that, but nothing like playing the classic Atari 2600 if we're talking retro video games. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this story of one of the games that made me a gamer, who I am today. I can't wait to share more stories with you guys here on the channel. I'd love to hear in the comments what one of your first games you can remember playing was an Atari 2600, NES, Super Nintendo. Let me know down below. There's going to be plenty of series on this channel. I'm going to be diving into Nintendo Power magazines, sharing pickups, stories, a whole lot of stuff coming here on Russly. So I hope you come along with this awesome adventure. And as always, I'm Russ Lyman, and keep your world fun bit by bit. I'll see you next video.